Hi everyone, I'm Kevin Nelson for Catholic Newsbreak. Here's what's happening this week in the news. We begin from the Vatican. Archbishop Silvano Tomasi, the Vatican representative to UN agencies in Geneva, told the UN Human Rights Council that with pro-democracy movements moving across North Africa and the Middle East, the situation in Libya worries the Vatican because of the loss of human lives, the targeting of civilians and of peaceful protesters, and the indiscriminate use of force. The Archbishop said the Vatican supports all efforts to encourage a dialogue between pro-democracy demonstrators and the government of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. Since late January, demonstrators across the region have taken to the streets, calling for democratic reforms. The protests led to leadership changes in Egypt and Tunisia, but saw a violent crackdown in Libya, where some 1,000 people were believed to have been killed. Foreign workers were being evacuated, and about 100,000 people were said to have fled to Egypt and Tunisia. Archbishop Tomasi told the Human Rights Council that violence only leads to a humanitarian catastrophe. Especially vulnerable in this crisis are asylum seekers, refugees, and irregular immigrant workers from sub-Saharan Africa who risk being made a scapegoat of accumulated frustrations. In an interview, Bishop Giovanni Innocenzo Martinelli, Apostolic Vicar of Tripoli, Libya, said the 2,000 Eritreans showed up at a church and church-run facilities asking for help and hoping to stay inside church property. The bishop said they are helping them as much as they can, but it is close to impossible to help them all. In other news from the Vatican, Pope Benedict XVI addressed the recent gathering of the 27th General Assembly of the Pontifical Academy for Life, which was taking place at the Vatican. The Assembly members of the Academy, doctors, and bioethics experts discussed the results of months of study on the controversial subject of umbilical cord blood banking and on the phenomenon of post-abortion trauma. Rome Reports has more on the Pope's address to the Assembly.
The Pope has asked doctors not to propose abortion as a solution to family, economic, and social problems, or for health reasons of the child, because he says abortion does not solve anything and causes even more serious damage.
Si richiede ai medici una speciale fortezza per continuare ad affermare che l'aborto non risolve nulla, ma uccide il bambino, distrugge la donna e acceca la coscienza del padre del bambino, rovinando spesso la vita familiare.
The Pope made these remarks during his meeting with members of the Pontifical Academy for Life, which for 3 days analyzed post-abortion trauma and the therapeutic use of umbilical cord cells. He urged them to continue working in search of what he called more appropriate responses for the good of humanity. Speaking on abortion, Benedict XVI said that men should not abandon women at their time of need during pregnancy.
In questa riflessione sarebbe utile anche porre l'attenzione sulla coscienza, talvolta offuscata dai padri dei bambini, che spesso lasciano sole le donne incinte.
The Pope then asked the audience to continue providing psychological support for women who have had abortions so they can overcome the moral and existential trauma it often causes.
Looking now at news from around the world, Cuban Archbishop Dionisio Garcia Ibanez of Santiago, the president of the Cuban Bishops' Conference, has been meeting with Cuban Americans and church leaders in U.S. cities that included New York, Miami, and Boston. Among the goals of the meetings, receptions, and dinners was to solicit support for Archbishop Garcia's dream of a fitting 400th anniversary celebration for the statue revered as representing the patroness of Cuba, Our Lady of Charity of El Cobre. Archbishop Garcia said that the Virgin of Charity unites us, whether inside Cuba or outside Cuba. There is a sense that we are all one church. For several years, Archbishop Garcia has been laying the groundwork for what he hopes will be a global pilgrimage next year to the small southeastern Cuba town of El Cobre, home to the Basilica Sanctuary, the Virgin of Charity, the home of a statue of Mary recovered by 3 fishermen in 1612 in the nearby Bay of Napay. The image is revered as the patroness of Cuba, and the sanctuary hosts thousands of pilgrims annually, concentrated around the September 8th feast of the Virgin of Charity. Most of those visitors come from within Cuba. However, Archbishop Garcia has long dreamed of bringing many people from around the world. And finally in the news, as the 30th anniversary of the Marian apparitions at Medjugorje approaches, the town is experiencing a building boom with new hostels, restaurants, and shops that cater to pilgrims. The 11 Franciscan friars assigned to the town's convent and its sole parish, St. James, are assisted by visiting priests and ministering to the pilgrims and the town's 3,500 residents. Individuals and members of organized groups climb Apparition Hill, where 6 village children say they first saw Mary in June of 1981. 3 of them say they still have visions each day, while the other 3 see Mary only once a year now. All 6 are now married and have children. For years, the local bishop has said he believes nothing supernatural is happening in Medjugorje. While the Vatican has said dioceses should not organize official pilgrimages, it has said Catholics are free to visit the town and pray there, and that the local diocese and the Franciscans should organize pastoral care for them. The Vatican has appointed a commission to study the authenticity of the apparitions, and that investigation is continuing. As for now, though, pilgrims continue to flock to Medjugorje. An estimated 1.5 million pilgrims came in the past year. Now, that is all the information we have for you this time. Please stay with Catholic TV for more Catholic news. Until then, I'm Kevin Nelson, and I'll see you next time on Catholic Newsbreak.